3.5 years ago, our Kaldarian fleet entered the solar system. The vast expanse of space stretched before us, a canvas of infinite possibilities soon to be painted with the glory of our conquest. Our warships, sleek and imposing, glided silently through the void, their hulls gleaming under the distant light of Earth's sun. Admiral Zarkon stood at the helm of the flagship Naruk Tivalis, his 4 eyes fixed on the holographic display of the system. His mandibles clicked with anticipation as he surveyed the scattered human outposts, mere specks against the backdrop of planets and asteroids. The fruits of our long-range reconnaissance were about to pay off. "All ships, maintain stealth protocols," Zarkon's voice resonated through the neural link connecting the fleet. "Prepare for simultaneous strikes on designated targets." The tension aboard the Naruk Tivalis was palpable. Crew members moved with practiced efficiency, their exoskeletons gleaming under the ship's bioluminescent lighting. Weapons officers calibrated the plasma cannons, while shield technicians fine-tuned the energy barriers to maximum efficiency. As we approached the outer reaches of the system, the first human structure came into view. A sprawling space station orbiting Pluto. Its design was crude by our standards, all angular metal and protruding solar panels. It hung there, oblivious to the impending doom that approached. "Target acquired," the weapons officer announced, his voice a mix of excitement and cold professionalism. "Awaiting your command, Admiral." Zarkon's upper eyes narrowed. "Fire!" A beam of concentrated energy erupted from the Naruk Tivalis, crossing the vast distance in an instant. The human station never stood a chance. The beam struck with surgical precision, slicing through its core. Secondary explosions bloomed across its surface, silent in the vacuum of space. Within moments, the station was reduced to a cloud of debris and frozen bodies. "First blood," Zarkon murmured, a hint of satisfaction in his tone. "All ships, commence the assault. Show no mercy." The Kaldarian fleet sprang into action like a well-oiled machine. Ships split off into predetermined groups, each targeting a specific human outpost. Our superior technology allowed us to strike multiple targets simultaneously across the vast distances of the solar system. Near Neptune, our stealth frigates emerged from the planet's shadow, catching a human research facility completely off guard. The facility's feeble defenses were no match for our advanced weaponry. Within minutes, the outpost was reduced to a floating wreckage, its inhabitants either dead or desperately clinging to life in escape pods. Commander Ishlor, leading a strike team aboard the assault carrier Theron Vulkor, set his sights on a larger target, a human military installation hidden within the rings of Saturn. "Prepare boarding parties," he ordered, his voice filled with anticipation. "I want prisoners for interrogation." The Theron Vulkor sliced through Saturn's rings, using the debris as cover. Human sensors, primitive by our standards, failed to detect our approach until it was too late. As we breached their perimeter, alarms blared across the human comms. "Attention all personnel! This is not a drill. We are under attack by unknown forces. Initiate emergency protocols immediately." The panic in the human commander's voice was music to Ishlor's ears. "Deploy the boarding pods," he commanded. "Let's show these primitives the meaning of true warfare." Boarding pods shot out from the Theron Vulkor, hurtling towards the human station. Point defense lasers tried to intercept them, but our advanced countermeasures ensured most made it through. The pods slammed into the station's hull, cutting through metal and polymer like a hot knife through butter. Ishlor led the charge, his battle armor gleaming as he strode through the breached airlock. Human defenders scattered before him, their projectile weapons bouncing harmlessly off his energy shields. With a gesture, he ordered his troops to fan out and secure the station. The humans fought bravely, but their efforts were futile. Our superior weaponry and armor made short work of their defenses. Within an hour, the station was under our control, its databases being stripped of valuable intelligence. As Ishlor surveyed the captured command center, he couldn't help but feel a twinge of disappointment. "Is this truly the best they can offer?" he mused, looking at the primitive technology surrounding him. Back in space, the battle raged across the system. Hey there, hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you do, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps the channel to grow and reach more people. Now let's find out what comes next. The asteroid belt became a deadly game of cat and mouse as our nimble fighters weaved through the rocky field, hunting down human mining operations and research stations. Each explosion added to the debris, creating an ever-changing battlefield. Admiral Zarkon watched the holographic display with growing satisfaction. Green indicators representing Keldarian forces systematically eliminated red human strongholds. It was almost too easy. "Sir," his second-in-command approached, mandibles twitching with excitement. "We've breached their communications network. You need to hear this." A cacophony of human voices filled the bridge, a mixture of different languages united by a single emotion: panic. "Repeat, this is not a drill. We are under attack by unknown forces. All personnel evacuate immediately. Oh God, they're everywhere." Zarkon allowed himself a moment of pride. The humans were in disarray, their fragmented response playing right into our hands. Their lack of a unified defense only hastened their downfall. As the assault progressed, we encountered pockets of resistance that managed to put up a fight. A small fleet of human warships emerged from behind one of Jupiter's moons, catching a Keldarian battle group off guard. For a brief moment, it seemed the humans might score a victory. The human ships, while numerous, were no match for our advanced shielding and weapon systems. We suffered minimal losses while decimating their fleet, the wreckage of their ships joining the growing debris field that marked our path through the system. However, the skirmish near Jupiter revealed an unexpected aspect of human tactics. Their ships, though technologically inferior, displayed a level of coordination and adaptability that caught some of our commanders by surprise. They used the complex gravitational fields of Jupiter and its moons to perform maneuvers our tactical computers struggled to predict. "Interesting," Zarkon mused, watching the replay of the battle. "These humans show a glimmer of potential. Perhaps they will provide more sport than we anticipated." As news of our invasion spread through the human communication networks, their response became more organized. Emergency protocols were activated, and we detected increased activity around Mars and Earth. It seemed the bulk of their military might was concentrated closer to their homeworld. Zarkon decided to press our advantage before the humans could mount a significant defense. "All ships, push forward. We'll crush their outer defenses before they can regroup." Our fleet surged forward, an unstoppable tide of destruction sweeping through the solar system. Human outposts fell one by one, unable to withstand our onslaught. From the methane seas of Titan to the volcanic surface of Io, we systematically eliminated every trace of human presence. Yet as we approached the asteroid belt, we encountered something unexpected. The humans had transformed several large asteroids into fortified bases, bristling with weapons far more advanced than anything we'd seen so far. "It seems they've been holding out on us," Ishlor remarked, his voice a mixture of annoyance and grudging respect. "This might actually be a challenge." The battle for the asteroid belt was fierce. Human ships darted between the rocky bodies, using them as cover and launching surprise attacks. Their asteroid bases unleashed barrages of missiles and energy weapons, creating a deadly gauntlet for our forces to navigate. For the first time since the invasion began, we suffered significant losses. Several of our smaller ships were caught in devastating crossfires, their wreckage joining the ancient rocks of the belt. The humans fought with a desperation that bordered on madness, sacrificing ships and lives to slow our advance. Admiral Zarkon, watching the battle unfold, felt a mix of frustration and exhilaration. This was the kind of warfare he had trained for, not the one-sided slaughter of the outer system. "Concentrate fire on their largest base," he commanded. "Let's show them the full might of the Keldarian Empire." The Naruk Taivalis moved into position, its massive form dwarfing the asteroid base before it. Energy built up in its main cannon, a weapon capable of shattering moons. The humans, realizing the threat, threw everything they had at us in a last-ditch effort to prevent the inevitable. But it was too late. The cannon fired, a lance of pure energy that pierced the asteroid base from end to end. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a silent flash visible across the entire belt, the base exploded. The shockwave rippled through space, destroying smaller asteroids and human ships alike. The destruction of their main base seemed to break the humans' will to fight. their remaining ships scattered, fleeing towards Mars and Earth. We had won the battle for the asteroid belt, but at a cost higher than anticipated. As the dust settled, Zarkon called his commanders for a debriefing. "We've underestimated these humans," he admitted. "They're more resourceful than our intelligence suggested. We must be cautious as we approach their core worlds." Ishlor, his armor still bearing scorch marks from the recent battle, nodded in agreement. "Their tactics are unorthodox, but effective. We should study them, learn from them. It might prove useful in future conquests." The invasion paused briefly as we consolidated our gains and repaired our ships. The outer solar system was now firmly under our control, its resources ours to exploit. But the real prize, Earth and its colonies, still lay ahead. As we prepared for the next phase of our assault, intercepted human communications painted a picture of a species in turmoil. Their governments bickered among themselves, unable to agree on a unified response to our invasion. Some advocated immediate surrender, while others called for a fight to the last man, woman, and child. Their lack of unity would be their downfall. We had conquered half their system in a matter of weeks. Surely they could see the futility of further resistance. Yet, as we set our sights on Mars, we couldn't shake the feeling that the humans might have more surprises in store for us. Little did we know, the true test of our invasion was yet to come. The humans, with their backs against the wall, were about to show us why they had managed to spread across their solar system in the first place. The easy victories of the outer system had lulled us into a false sense of security. The real war was just beginning. 3 years ago, half a year after our initial attack, the Keldarian war machine rolled inexorably through the solar system. Our fleet, battle-hardened and flush with victory, carved a path of destruction towards the inner planets. The scattered remnants of human resistance were swept aside like cosmic dust before a solar wind. Admiral Zarkon stood on the bridge of the Naruk Tivalis, his 4 eyes gleaming with satisfaction as he surveyed the holographic display of our conquered territory. Green indicators marked our controlled space, stretching from the Kuiper Belt to the asteroid belt. Red dots, representing human strongholds, flickered and vanished one by one. "Status report," Zarkon commanded, his voice carrying the weight of countless victories. His second-in-command, Sub-Admiral Nyaris, stepped forward. "Our forces have secured all major outposts in the outer system, Admiral. The humans' vaunted Jovian defense network has fallen. We now control all gas giant mining operations." Zarkon's mandibles clicked in approval. "Excellent. And what of their inner system defenses?" "Crumbling, sir. Our advanced fleet has engaged their forces near the red planet they call Mars. It's only a matter of time before—" A sudden alert cut through the air, drawing all eyes to the main display. A massive energy signature had just appeared near Mars, dwarfing anything we'd encountered so far. "By the void," Nyaris gasped. "What is that?" Zarkon leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "It seems the humans have been holding out on us. Interesting. Patch me through to Commander Ishlor." The grizzled face of Ishlor appeared on screen, his battle armor scorched and dented from recent combat. "Admiral," he growled, "you're seeing this?" "Indeed. What's the situation on the ground?" Ishlor's mandibles twitched in frustration. "The humans have activated some kind of orbital defense platform. It's unleashing hell on our forward units. We've lost 3 cruisers already." Zarkon's mind raced, analyzing the tactical implications. This was an unexpected development, but not an insurmountable one. "Fall back and regroup. I'm dispatching reinforcements. We'll hit them with everything we've got." As the communication ended, Zarkon turned to his bridge crew. "All ships, battle formation Delta. We're going to crush this pathetic last stand and show these humans the true might of the Keldarian Empire." The next hours were a frenzy of strategic maneuvers and brutal combat. Our fleet engaged the Martian defenses in a dance of death that stretched across the orbit of the red planet. The human weapon, which we soon learned they called the Ares Sentinel, proved to be a formidable adversary. It fired beams of concentrated plasma that cut through our ship's shields like they were gossamer. Each blast left a trail of superheated particles, creating a deadly web of energy around Mars. Our smaller ships darted through the gaps, launching counterattacks, while our capital ships hung back, unleashing salvos of long-range fire. Commander Ishlor led the ground assault, his troops fighting tooth and nail for every inch of Martian soil. The humans had fortified their colonies, turning them into veritable fortresses. But Ishlor was nothing if not resourceful. "Use the environment against them," he barked to his squad leaders. "The low gravity, the dust storms, turn them to our advantage." And so they did. Keldarian shock troops used jump packs to leap impossible distances, raining death from above on human positions. Others burrowed through the Martian regolith, emerging behind enemy lines to wreak havoc. But the humans fought with a tenacity that bordered on the insane. They used their knowledge of the terrain to set ambushes, luring our forces into kill zones where they'd be exposed to fire from multiple angles. Their weapons, while primitive compared to ours, were brutally effective in the close quarters of their underground habitats. As the battle raged on, Admiral Zarkon realized that a change in strategy was needed. The Ares Sentinel was the linchpin of the human defense. If it fell, Mars would follow. "Concentrate all fire on that orbital platform," he commanded. "I want it reduced to atoms." The full might of the Keldarian fleet turned its attention to the Sentinel. Thousands of energy beams converged on the massive structure, its shields flaring brilliantly as they struggled to repel the onslaught. For a moment, it seemed indestructible. Then, with a flash that outshone the sun, the Sentinel's shields failed. Our weapons tore into its superstructure, ripping it apart piece by piece. The resulting explosion was visible from the surface of Mars, a new, short-lived star marking the death of human resistance. With their trump card destroyed, the fight seemed to go out of the humans, their remaining ships scattered, fleeing towards Earth. On the ground, Ishlor reported that human forces were surrendering en masse. As the dust settled on the conquered red planet, Zarkon allowed himself a moment of reflection. The battle had been harder than anticipated, but the outcome was never in doubt. These humans, for all their clever tricks, were simply outmatched. "Prepare for the final phase," he ordered. "Earth awaits." The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of activity as we consolidated our hold on Mars and prepared for the assault on humanity's homeworld. Our scientists and engineers pored over captured human technology, searching for any advantages we could glean. What we found was disappointing. While ingenious in some respects, human tech was laughably primitive compared to our own. Their AI systems were barely sentient, their energy weapons crude and inefficient. It seemed that their earlier resistance had been more a product of desperation than any real technological prowess. Commander Ishlor, overseeing the integration of Mars into our empire, shared his observations with the fleet. "These humans are a paradox," he mused. "Individually weak, yet capable of surprising feats when cornered. Their cities are a mess of inefficiency, yet they've managed to spread across their system. I can't help but wonder what drove them to the stars in the first place." Admiral Zarkon dismissed such musings. "It matters not. Soon, they will be just another footnote in the glorious history of Keldarian conquest. Prepare your forces, Commander. The assault on Earth begins in 3 cycles." As our fleet assembled in Mars orbit, the magnitude of our impending victory became clear. Thousands of ships, from nimble fighters to city-sized dreadnoughts, filled the sky. The humans, monitoring our movements from Earth, must have felt a sense of hopelessness at the sight. Our intelligence suggested that the humans had thrown everything they had into the defense of Mars. Earth, while still defended, was ripe for the taking. Their orbital defenses were a joke compared to the Ares Sentinel, and their ground forces were stretched thin, trying to maintain order among a panicking population. The journey to Earth was tense, filled with anticipation of the final battle to come. As we approached the blue planet, so similar yet so alien to our own homeworld, we intercepted fragments of human communications. Their leaders argued amongst themselves, unable to agree on a unified response to our invasion. Some advocated immediate surrender, while others called for a fight to the last man, woman, and child. Their lack of unity would be their downfall. We had conquered half their system in a matter of months. Surely they could see the futility of further resistance. As we entered Earth orbit, We expected to be met with a barrage of defensive fire. Instead, an eerie silence greeted us. The orbital platforms we'd detected earlier hung dark and lifeless. Had the humans simply given up? Admiral Zarkon, suspicious of this apparent lack of resistance, ordered a thorough scan of the planet. "I want every square meter of that rock analyzed," he growled. "This smells like a trap." Hours passed as our sensors probed Earth's surface. What we found was confusing. There were signs of large-scale movement, entire cities seemingly emptied of human life. But where had they gone? The answer came in a way none of us could have predicted. As our first wave of dropships entered the atmosphere, the sky itself seemed to come alive. Swarms of tiny objects, invisible to our previous scans, suddenly activated. They latched onto our ships, burrowing through hulls and wreaking havoc with systems. "Nanites!" Nyaris shouted, his voice filled with disbelief. "They've weaponized nanites!" Ships began falling from the sky, their crews helpless as microscopic machines ate through critical systems. Those that managed to land found themselves facing an enemy that seemed to melt away before them, only to strike from unexpected quarters. Commander Ishlor, leading the ground assault, found himself in a nightmarish urban battlefield. The empty cities were death traps, rigged with automated defenses and swarms of lethal microbots. "Fall back!" he roared as another building collapsed, burying a squad of his best troops. "Back to the landing zones!" But retreat was easier said than done. The humans, it seemed, had not been idle in the time we'd given them. They'd transformed their entire planet into a weapon, a defense system that turned our own technological superiority against us. Admiral Zarkon watched in growing horror as reports flooded in from all fronts. Our ships were being systematically disabled, our ground forces cut off and surrounded. The humans, using some kind of advanced stealth technology, struck at will before disappearing into hidden bunkers and tunnels. "This is impossible," Nyaris muttered, his earlier confidence shattered. How could they have developed such technology so quickly? Zarkon had no answer. For the first time since the invasion began, he felt a creeping doubt. Had they underestimated these humans? Was this all an elaborate trap, drawing them in only to spring shut at the perfect moment? As the Earth operation devolved into chaos, Zarkon made a decision that would haunt him for years to come. "All forces, full retreat," he ordered, his voice heavy with the weight of impending defeat. "Fall back to Mars. We need to regroup and reassess." The withdrawal was a nightmare. Our once mighty armada limping away from Earth, harried by human counterattacks. Ships that had survived the nanite swarms found themselves picked off by suddenly active orbital defenses. It was as if the entire planet had come alive, determined to expel the invaders. As the remnants of our fleet regrouped in Mars orbit, the full extent of our defeat became clear. We had lost nearly half our ships and a third of our ground forces in a single disastrous day. The humans, far from being on the brink of defeat, had revealed themselves to be a foe unlike any we had ever faced. Admiral Zarkon, his earlier confidence shattered, called an emergency war council. As his commanders gathered, their faces grim and battle-worn, he realized that the true test of their invasion was just beginning. The humans, with their backs against the wall, had shown them why they had managed to spread across their solar system in the first place. The easy victories of the outer system had lulled them into a false sense of security. Now, facing an enemy that had outmaneuvered and outfought them at every turn, the Kaldarians were forced to confront an uncomfortable truth. The real war was just beginning, and its outcome was far from certain. 2 years ago, when our victory seemed certain, the tide of war shifted in a way none of us could have anticipated. The humans, those primitive beings we had so easily dismissed, revealed a resilience and ingenuity that would shake the very foundations of our empire. Our forces, spread thin across the solar system, had grown complacent. We believed the humans broken, their spirit crushed under the weight of our technological superiority. How wrong we were. The first signs of effective human resistance came not with a bang, but with an eerie silence. Our forward outposts on Mars suddenly went dark, their communications cut off without warning. Initial scans showed no signs of attack, no debris fields that would indicate destruction. It was as if they had simply vanished. Admiral Zarkon, his confidence shaken by the recent setbacks on Earth, dispatched a reconnaissance fleet to investigate. What they found defied explanation. The outposts were intact, but empty. No signs of struggle, no bodies, nothing. It was as if the Keldarian garrisons had never existed. Before we could process this bizarre turn of events, reports flooded in from across the system. Our bases on the moons of Jupiter and Saturn were experiencing similar phenomena. Entire battalions of our troops were disappearing without a trace. Panic began to spread through our ranks. Soldiers whispered of human sorcery, of weapons that could erase matter itself. The once unshakable morale of the Keldarian military began to crumble in the face of this unseen, unknowable threat. It was Commander Ishlor who first uncovered the truth. During a routine patrol near the asteroid belt, his ship detected an anomalous energy signature. Upon closer inspection, they discovered a human stealth vessel unlike anything we had encountered before. The ship was practically invisible to our sensors, its hull covered in a material that absorbed all forms of radiation. But it was what they found inside that truly astounded us. The humans had developed a form of teleportation technology, allowing them to remove our troops from their posts without firing a single shot. This revelation sent shockwaves through the Keldarian High Command. We had grossly underestimated human technological capabilities. While we had been focusing on brute force and overwhelming firepower, they had been quietly developing methods to negate our advantages entirely. Admiral Zarkon, his 4 eyes blazing with a mixture of fury and grudging respect, called an emergency war council. "We face an enemy far more cunning than we ever imagined," he growled to his assembled commanders. "We must adapt, or we will be destroyed." But adaptation proved easier said than done. The humans, emboldened by their successes, launched a series of lightning strikes against our key strongholds. They employed tactics we had never seen before, combining their teleportation technology with other innovations that left our heads spinning. One particularly devastating attack targeted our main fuel depot in the rings of Saturn. A small team of human operatives using personal stealth fields that rendered them almost invisible infiltrated the facility. Instead of destroying it outright, they reprogrammed our own automated systems to turn against us. Suddenly, our refueling ships found themselves under attack from the very station they had come to resupply. Fuel lines became flamethrowers, maintenance drones became suicide bombers. In the span of a few hours, we lost a quarter of our fleet's fuel reserves and dozens of ships. The ingenuity of the attack left even the most hardened Keldarian veterans in awe. How had these humans, who just months ago seemed on the brink of defeat, developed such advanced technology? And more importantly, what else did they have in store for us? We soon found out. The next major battle took place in the orbit of Mars, where we had established our main forward base. We expected another stealth attack, perhaps an attempt to teleport a bomb into our command center. What we got instead was a demonstration of human adaptability that would haunt us for years to come. The battle began conventionally enough, with a human fleet engaging our orbital defenses. Their ships, while improved, still seemed no match for our superior firepower. We took the bait, committing more and more of our forces to the fight, eager to crush this foolhardy assault. That's when they sprang their trap. As our ships maneuvered into position, the humans activated some kind of gravity weapon. Suddenly, the space around Mars warped and twisted. Our vessels, caught in the distortion, found themselves pulled towards each other, colliding in a catastrophic display of fire and twisted metal. But the humans weren't done. As we struggled to regain control, their ships launched swarms of what we first thought were missiles. Instead, they were some kind of autonomous drones, each barely larger than a Keldarian hand. These drones attached themselves to our hulls, burrowing inside with startling speed. Once inside, the drones began to wreak havoc. They severed power lines, disrupted life support systems, and turned our own internal defenses against us. Ships that had withstood the gravity attack now found themselves being torn apart from the inside. The battle for Mars was over in a matter of hours. What had been the pride of the Keldarian fleet was now a field of debris orbiting the red planet. The few ships that managed to escape limped back to our remaining strongholds, their crews shell-shocked and demoralized. Admiral Zarkon, watching the disaster unfold from his flagship near Jupiter, felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Not just fear of defeat, but fear of an enemy that seemed to be always one step ahead, always with another trick up their sleeve. "How?" he muttered, his mandibles clicking in agitation. How can they have developed all this so quickly? The answer, when it came, was almost too incredible to believe. Our intelligence operatives, working tirelessly to understand the sudden leap in human capabilities, uncovered a startling truth. The humans hadn't developed these technologies on their own. At least, not entirely. It seemed that in the early days of our invasion, a Keldarian science vessel had been captured intact by the humans. Rather than destroying it, they had studied it, reverse-engineered its systems, and combined them with their own unique innovations. The result was a hybrid technology that took the best of both worlds. Our advanced power systems and material science, combined with human creativity and out-of-the-box thinking, had created a war machine that we were ill-prepared to face. This revelation hit the Keldarian High Command like a physical blow. We had always prided ourselves on our technological superiority, believing it to be the key to our galactic conquests. To have that advantage not only neutralized but turned against us was a humiliation beyond words. But the humans weren't content with merely defending their system. As we retreated, consolidating our forces around Jupiter and its moons, they pressed their advantage. The next phase of their counterattack demonstrated a level of strategic thinking that left us reeling. Instead of a frontal assault on our remaining strongholds, the humans targeted our supply lines. Using their stealth and teleportation technology, they conducted a series of raids on our transport ships and supply depots. Crucial resources, fuel, ammunition, food, disappeared overnight. Our logistics network, once a model of efficiency, was thrown into chaos. Ships arrived at refueling stations to find them empty. Outposts called for resupply only to be met with silence. The vast war machine of the Keldarian Empire began to sputter and stall. Commander Ishlor, now tasked with maintaining our defensive line around Jupiter, found himself fighting a war of attrition that we were ill-equipped to win. "We're being bled dry," he reported to Admiral Zarkon. "Another month of this, and we won't have the resources to maintain our position, let alone mount a counteroffensive." Zarkon, his once imperious demeanor now worn and haggard, knew that a difficult decision lay before him. The rational choice was to retreat, to pull our forces back to the outer system where we could regroup and reassess. But retreat meant admitting defeat, something that no Keldarian admiral had done in living memory. As he wrestled with this dilemma, the humans launched their masterstroke. In a coordinated attack that demonstrated their newfound mastery of system-wide warfare, they struck at every major Keldarian holding simultaneously. Teleportation gates opened in the heart of our bases, disgorging human strike teams armed with weapons that seemed to ignore our shields entirely. Massive EMP bursts, far more powerful than anything we had ever encountered, shut down our electronic systems, leaving us blind and defenseless. But it was their use of our own gravity weapons, refined and improved, that truly broke us. Entire moons were pulled out of alignment, their suddenly erratic orbits causing havoc with our carefully plotted defensive positions. Ships found themselves caught in gravitational eddies, unable to maneuver as human forces picked them off one by one. The battle raged for days, but the outcome was never in doubt. Outmatched and outmaneuvered, our once mighty invasion force was reduced to a scattered collection of battered ships and isolated outposts. Admiral Zarkon, watching the last of our major bases fall to the human onslaught, finally gave the order he had hoped never to utter. All forces, full retreat. Abandon the solar system. Return to Keldarian space immediately. As our remaining ships fled, limping towards the outer reaches of the system, we were confronted with the full magnitude of our defeat. In the space of a few short years, we had gone from conquerors to fugitives, our vaunted military might shattered against the rock of human resilience and ingenuity. The journey home was a somber one. Ships that had entered the solar system gleaming and proud now bore the scars of battles we had never imagined fighting. Crews that had once sneered at the very idea of human resistance now jumped at shadows, half expecting another impossible human attack to materialize out of nowhere. But it was the psychological impact that truly devastated us. We had always seen ourselves as the pinnacle of galactic civilization, our technology and military prowess unmatched. To be so thoroughly defeated, and by a species we had dismissed as primitive, shook the very foundations of our society. As we crossed the heliopause, leaving the solar system behind, Admiral Zarkon gathered his remaining commanders for one final briefing. His words, transmitted across the battered fleet, would echo in our collective memory for generations to come. We came to this system believing ourselves invincible, seeing the humans as nothing more than insects to be crushed beneath our feet. We leave it humbled, awed by an enemy whose strength lies not in technology or numbers, but in an indomitable spirit and a creativity we can scarcely comprehend. Let this defeat be a lesson to us all. We may have lost this war, but in doing so, we have gained something far more valuable, a true understanding of what it means to face an enemy that will never, ever give up. Remember this day, for it marks not just the end of our campaign, but the beginning of a new chapter in Kaldarian history. As the last of our ships disappeared into the depths of space, we left behind a solar system transformed. The humans, victorious against all odds, stood poised to take their place among the stars. And we, the mighty Kaldarian Empire, found ourselves facing a future filled with uncertainty, humbled by the species we had so gravely underestimated. 1 year ago, we faced the unthinkable. The humans, those primitive beings we had once dismissed as barely worthy of conquest, brought the war to our doorstep. The Kaldarian Empire, undefeated for millennia, found itself fighting for survival on its own soil. The first signs of the human offensive came not as a massive fleet invasion, but as a series of surgical strikes that left our high command reeling. Our outermost colonies, those proud bastions of Kaldarian might, fell silent one by one. No distress calls, no signs of battle. They simply vanished from our networks, as if erased from existence. Admiral Zarkon, his once immaculate uniform now bearing the scars of countless battles, stood before the Imperial War Council. His 4 eyes, usually gleaming with confidence, now held a haunted look. "They're using our own technology against us," he reported, his mandibles clicking with agitation. "Somehow they've perfected the teleportation technology they stole. But they've done something more." Holographic displays flickered to life, showing footage from our few surviving outposts. We watched in horror as entire Kaldarian cities were engulfed in shimmering fields of energy. When the fields dissipated, nothing remained. Not buildings, not ships, not even the ground beneath. It was as if chunks of our worlds had been surgically removed from reality itself. "They're not just teleporting our forces away," Zarkon continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "They're teleporting entire sections of our colonies into somewhere else. We don't know where. We don't know if those taken are even still alive." The council chamber erupted into chaos. Accusations flew, strategies were proposed and discarded in the same breath. For the first time in living memory, the leaders of the Kaldarian Empire felt true fear. As our outer defenses crumbled, the humans pressed their advantage. Their ships, once easy prey for our superior firepower, now danced through our formations with impossible agility. They had taken our inertial dampening technology and pushed it far beyond what we had thought possible. Their vessels pulled maneuvers that should have turned their crews to paste, corkscrewing through asteroid fields and using gravity wells as slingshots. Our gunners, trained to perfection over decades, found themselves unable to land a single hit. But it was on the ground that the true horror of human ingenuity revealed itself. As they pushed deeper into our territory, we got our first glimpse of their infantry. Gone were the fragile, unarmored humans we had faced in the Sol system. In their place stood towering mechs, each one a walking tank that shrugged off our heaviest weapons. These mechs, we soon learned, were piloted by human minds directly interfaced with the machines. They moved with a fluidity that no Kaldarian battle robot could match, adapting to our tactics faster than we could implement them. Worse, They seemed to possess a watered-down version of our own phase shift technology, allowing them to briefly slip out of sync with reality to avoid incoming fire. Commander Kelthar, leading our ground forces on Keldar, our homeworld, found himself in a nightmare of urban warfare. The humans didn't just defeat our troops, they reshaped the very battlefield around them. They have some kind of matter manipulation technology, Kelthar reported, his transmission interspersed with the sounds of distant explosions. One moment we're advancing down a street, the next that street becomes a sheer wall. They're changing the city faster than we can adapt. The footage from his helmet cam showed scenes that defied belief. Human soldiers, encased in armor that seemed to flow like liquid metal, phasing through solid walls. Weapons that fired projectiles that split mid-flight, homing in on multiple targets with unerring accuracy. And perhaps most terrifying of all, swarms of microscopic robots that devoured our equipment and turned our own vehicles against us. As the battles raged on, a grim realization settled over the Keldarian High Command. We weren't just losing, we were being systematically dismantled. Every tactic we employed was countered before it could be fully implemented. Every technological advantage we thought we held was turned against us, improved upon in ways we hadn't even considered. The humans, it seemed, had an uncanny ability to take our technology and push it to its logical extreme. Where we saw limits, they saw possibilities. Where we settled for good enough, they pushed for perfection. Take, for example, our vaunted energy shield technology. We had always used it as a static defense, a bubble of protection around our ships and installations. The humans, they turned it into an offensive weapon. Their troops carried portable shield generators that could create brief, localized force fields. These weren't just for defense. They used them to create impromptu bridges across chasms, to crush our soldiers against walls, even to contain and redirect explosions back at us. Or consider our faster-than-light communication relays. In our hands, they were a tool for coordinating our vast empire. In human hands, they became a weapon of information warfare. They hijacked our networks, feeding us false intelligence, turning our own command structure against us. Half the time, we couldn't tell if the orders we were receiving were genuine or human plants designed to lure us into traps. But perhaps the most humiliating aspect of the human offensive was how they turned our own cultural strengths against us. The Keldarian Empire had always prided itself on its unity, its ability to act as a single, coordinated force. The humans exploited this ruthlessly. They launched attacks that seemed random, chaotic, even suicidal. But each one forced us to respond according to our doctrines, to shift our forces in predictable ways. And every time we did, we'd realize too late that we had fallen into yet another carefully laid trap. Admiral Zarkon, watching the defense of our homeworld crumble from his command ship in orbit, felt a grudging respect for his human counterpart. "They fight like no enemy we've ever faced," he mused to his adjutant. "Not as a uniform mass, but as thousands of individual units, each one adapting on the fly. It's like trying to fight a swarm of insects, if each insect had the brain of a tactical genius." As our defeats mounted, that respect turned to fear, and then to a kind of awe. How had we ever considered these humans inferior? They had taken our best technology, our most closely guarded military secrets, and in the space of a few short years, transformed them into something we could barely comprehend. The battle for Keldar raged on, with no end in sight. Our once impregnable planetary defenses were systematically dismantled. The humans didn't just overwhelm us with superior firepower, they outmaneuvered us at every turn, using tactics that seemed to border on precognition. One particularly devastating attack targeted our main power distribution network. A small team of human operatives, using personal stealth fields that rendered them almost invisible, infiltrated the facility. Instead of destroying it outright, they reprogrammed our own automated systems to turn against us. Suddenly, our defense grids found themselves under attack from the very power source they relied on. Energy conduits became weapons, overloading and exploding in chain reactions across the planet. Shielded bunkers designed to withstand orbital bombardment were cooked from the inside out as their own power cores went critical. The ingenuity of the attack left even the most hardened Keldarian veterans in awe. How had these humans, who just months ago seemed on the brink of defeat, developed such advanced technology? And more importantly, what else did they have in store for us? We soon found out. The next major battle took place in the skies above our capital city. We expected another stealth attack, perhaps an attempt to teleport a bomb into our command center. What we got instead was a demonstration of human adaptability that would haunt us for years to come. The battle began conventionally enough, with a human fleet engaging our orbital defenses. Their ships, while improved, still seemed no match for our superior firepower. We took the bait, committing more and more of our forces to the fight, eager to crush this foolhardy assault. That's when they sprang their trap. As our ships maneuvered into position, the humans activated some kind of gravity weapon. Suddenly, the space around Keldar warped and twisted. Our vessels, caught in the distortion, found themselves pulled towards each other, colliding in a catastrophic display of fire and twisted metal. But the humans weren't done. As we struggled to regain control, their ships launched swarms of what we first thought were missiles. Instead, they were some kind of autonomous drones, each barely larger than a Keldarian hand. These drones attached themselves to our hulls, burrowing inside with startling speed. Once inside, the drones began to wreak havoc. They severed power lines, disrupted life support systems, and turned our own internal defenses against us. Ships that had withstood the gravity attack now found themselves being torn apart from the inside. The battle for orbital supremacy was over in a matter of hours. What had been the pride of the Keldarian fleet was now a field of debris orbiting our homeworld. The few ships that managed to escape limped back to our remaining strongholds, their crews shell-shocked and demoralized. On the ground, the situation was equally dire. Human mechs, now augmented with technology reverse-engineered from our own weapons, tore through our defensive lines like they were made of paper. Our soldiers, once confident in their superior training and equipment, found themselves outmatched at every turn. Commander Kelthar, leading a desperate defense of our capital's inner districts, watched in horror as the humans deployed yet another weapon we had never seen before. Swarms of nanobots, invisible to the naked eye, swept through our ranks like a metallic plague. They didn't kill our troops. Instead, they rewrote the control systems of our powered armor, turning our own soldiers into unwilling puppets. "Fall back!" Kelthar roared, watching helplessly as his own men turned their weapons on each other. "Abandon all powered equipment. They've weaponized our own technology against us." But retreat was easier said than done. The humans had anticipated our evacuation routes, turning them into killing fields. Gravity weapons turned streets into vertical death traps, while teleportation beams snatched up entire squads, depositing them into the heart of human-controlled territories. As the battle raged on, a sense of despair began to settle over the Keldarian forces. How could we fight an enemy that seemed to know our every move before we made it? An enemy that had taken our greatest strengths and turned them into our most crippling weaknesses. Admiral Zarkon, watching the devastation unfold from his command center deep beneath the capital, felt the emotion he had never experienced before: hopelessness. For the first time in his long career, he began to consider the unthinkable: that the Keldarian Empire, undefeated for millennia, might actually lose this war. But even as that thought crossed his mind, Zarkon steeled himself. No, he wouldn't give up. Not yet. The humans may have surprised us, may have pushed us to the brink, but we were Keldarians. We had conquered 1,000 worlds, faced countless alien species. We would adapt. We would survive. With grim determination, Zarkon began to formulate a new strategy. If the humans could adapt our technology so quickly, perhaps we could do the same. We had underestimated them once. We wouldn't make that mistake again. As the battle for Keldar entered its second week, the first glimmers of a Keldarian counter-offensive began to take shape. We may have been on the back foot, but the war was far from over. The humans had shown us the true meaning of adaptability and innovation. Now, it was time to show them that we could learn those lessons too. The tide of battle continued to ebb and flow across the surface of Keldar. Each Keldarian victory, hard-fought and dearly bought, was met with a new human innovation that pushed us back once again. It was a war of technological one-upmanship, with the fate of our entire civilization hanging in the balance. As the conflict dragged on, a grudging respect began to grow among the Keldarian ranks for our human adversaries. They had proven themselves to be far more than the primitive species we had initially dismissed them as. Their ingenuity, their adaptability, their sheer determination in the face of overwhelming odds. These were qualities we could not help but admire, even as we fought against them. The war had changed us, perhaps irrevocably. The arrogance that had led us to underestimate the humans in the first place had been burned away, replaced by a new understanding of our place in the galaxy. We were not the invincible conquerors we had believed ourselves to be. But neither were we ready to submit to defeat. As Keldar burned and bled under the relentless human assault, the Keldarian Empire steeled itself for the greatest challenge in its long history. The humans had brought the war to our doorstep, had pushed us to the very brink of annihilation. But we were not finished yet. The true test of our civilization was just beginning. 6 months ago, our civilization faced its darkest moment. The once mighty Keldarian Empire, conquerors of 1,000 worlds, stood on the brink of total annihilation. The humans, those creatures we had so foolishly underestimated, now held our very existence in their hands. The final battles were a desperate, futile attempt to stave off the inevitable. Our last stronghold on Keldar, a fortress we had believed impregnable, crumbled under the relentless human assault. Their weapons, a terrifying fusion of Keldarian technology and human ingenuity, tore through our defenses as if they were made of paper. Admiral Zarkon, his once pristine uniform now tattered and stained with the blood of his fallen comrades, watched from the command center as the sky above the capital city turned into a maelstrom of fire and light. Human ships, sleek and deadly, danced through our flak fields with impossible grace. Each maneuver they performed seemed to defy the laws of physics, a brutal reminder of how far they had surpassed us. "They're toying with us," Zarkon muttered, his 4 eyes narrowing in a mixture of fear and grudging admiration. "They could have obliterated us from orbit days ago. Why do they insist on this ground assault?" The answer came in a form none of us could have predicted. As the human forces breached the outer walls of the fortress, we braced ourselves for the final, brutal push. But instead of the expected onslaught, a single human figure stepped forward. Unarmed, unarmored, he stood before our guns with a calm that bordered on the supernatural. "I am General Rick Valerius of Earth," the human's voice boomed through our communication systems, somehow bypassing all our security protocols. "And I come to offer you a choice." The silence that followed was deafening. Every Keldarian soldier, from the lowliest grunt to Zarkon himself, held their breath. This was not how wars ended, not in our experience. There should be no choices left for the defeated. "You can continue this fight," Valerius continued, his voice echoing through the fortress halls. "You can die here, today, believing to the last that your cause was just. Or you can surrender and learn the truth that has been hidden from you." Truth. What truth could possibly justify the devastation we had witnessed? The fall of our empire, the death of countless Keldarians. And yet, something in the human's voice, a certainty that went beyond mere military confidence, gave us pause. Zarkon, his hand hovering over the button that would launch our final suicidal counterattack, hesitated. In that moment of indecision, the fate of our entire species hung in the balance. "What say you, Admiral?" Valerius pressed. "Will you die for a lie or live to learn the truth?" With a heavy heart and shaking hands, Zarkon made the decision that would reshape our civilization. We surrender," he croaked, his proud voice now barely a whisper. The process of rendition was unlike anything we had ever experienced or imagined. The humans, now in complete control of our homeworld and the remnants of our once vast empire, did not act like the conquering force we expected. There were no mass executions, no enslavement of our population. Instead, they approached the task with an efficiency and, was it compassion, that left us bewildered. As we laid down our arms and emerged from our shattered fortresses, we braced ourselves for humiliation and brutality. What we found instead were medical teams ready to treat our wounded, engineers working to restore power and life support to damaged areas, and soldiers who regarded us not with hatred, but with a sort of solemn respect. but it was the revelation that came next that truly shook us to our core. As the dust of battle settled and the initial shock of defeat began to fade, General Valerius called for a meeting with the remaining Kaldarian leadership. What he revealed in that meeting would change everything we thought we knew about the war, about humans, and about our own place in the galaxy. "You were deceived," Valerius began, his voice grave. "The intelligence that led you to attack Earth, the reports of human aggression and expansion that threatened your empire. It was all fabricated." A holographic display flickered to life, showing communication logs, falsified reports, and surveillance footage. As we watched, the terrible truth unfolded before us. Our initial attack on human outposts, the act we had believed was a preemptive strike to safeguard our civilization, had been orchestrated by a third party. "We call them the Vralith," Valerius explained, "a species so ancient and advanced that they view the rise and fall of civilizations as mere entertainment. They have been manipulating younger races for millennia, pitting them against each other in elaborate games of conquest and survival. The evidence was irrefutable. Carefully planted misinformation, subtle manipulations of our long-range sensors, even direct interventions masked as natural phenomena or equipment malfunctions. All designed to push us into a war with humanity, a war that the Vralith had undoubtedly expected to result in mutual destruction." "But why?" Zarkon asked, his voice hoarse with shock and dawning horror. "Why would they do this?" Valerius's expression was grim. "Because a galaxy of cooperation and peace is anathema to them. They feed on conflict, on the suffering and destruction of younger races, and our two species, Kaldarian and human, represented a threat to their dominion." As the full implications of this revelation sank in, a wave of emotions swept through the assembled Kaldarian leaders. Anger at being manipulated, shame at our own arrogance in believing the false intelligence, and a deep, abiding horror at the realization of what we had nearly done, not just to humanity, but to ourselves. But it was the humans' reaction to this shared revelation that truly astounded us. Instead of using this information to justify harsh terms of surrender or to exact revenge for our unwarranted aggression, they extended an olive branch. "We were both pawns in their game," Valerius said, his voice softening. "But together, we have the opportunity to turn the tables. The Vralith underestimated both our species. They never expected humans to not only survive your initial assault, but to adapt and overcome. And they certainly never expected the Kaldarian Empire to be capable of admitting error and seeking reconciliation." The room fell silent as we processed this. The idea of alliance with a species we had so recently tried to annihilate seemed absurd, impossible. And yet, as we looked at the humans before us, we saw not conquerors gloating over a vanquished foe, but potential partners offering a chance at redemption. In the days that followed, as the terms of our surrender were negotiated, we witnessed firsthand the qualities that had allowed humanity to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. Their adaptability was evident in how quickly they learned to interface with our technology. Their ingenuity shone through in the novel solutions they proposed to restore our damaged worlds, and their courage was clear in their willingness to trust us, despite our history of hostility. But it was their capacity for empathy and forgiveness that truly humbled us. We had invaded their system, destroyed their outposts, killed countless of their people. By all rights, they should have demanded our complete subjugation, if not our outright extinction. Instead, they offered cooperation, rehabilitation, and a chance to make amends. As the dust settled and the reality of our new situation began to sink in, a strange sense of hope began to emerge among our people. The humans, it seemed, were not content with merely defeating us. They wanted to elevate us, to help us become better than we had been. Their scientists and engineers worked alongside ours, sharing knowledge and pushing the boundaries of what we had thought possible. Their diplomats engaged with our civil leaders, helping to reshape our governance to be more inclusive and representative. And perhaps most surprisingly, their artists and philosophers engaged with ours, sparking a cultural exchange that promised to enrich both our civilizations. 6 months after our surrender, as I stand here watching human and Kaldarian children play together in the rebuilt parks of our capital city, I am struck by a profound realization. We entered this conflict believing ourselves to be the superior species, destined to rule the galaxy. We emerged from it humbled, but also enlightened. The humans defeated us not just through military might, but through the power of their ideas, the strength of their character, and their unwavering belief in the possibility of a better future. They showed us that true strength lies not in domination, but in cooperation. That the greatest victories are not won on the battlefield, but in the hearts and minds of those we once considered enemies. As negotiations for a formal alliance between our species continue, I find myself filled with an emotion I never expected to feel towards humans. Gratitude. Gratitude for the mercy they showed us in victory, for the wisdom they displayed in peace, and for the opportunity they have given us to become something greater than we ever were before. The galaxy is a darker, more dangerous place than we had ever imagined. The Vralith and whatever other ancient, malevolent forces may lurk in the cosmic depths are still out there, still plotting, still threatening the future of all younger races. But as I look at the fruits of human-Keldarian cooperation, the advancements in technology, the strengthening of our defenses, the blossoming of a truly galactic culture, I feel something I haven't felt since the early days of the war. Hope. The road ahead will not be easy. Trust between our species remains fragile, the wounds of war still fresh. The Vralith, once they realize their plan has backfired, will undoubtedly strike again. But for the first time, we face these challenges not as isolated, vulnerable civilizations, but as allies. As I watch a human child help a young Keldarian master the art of flying a kite, a simple earth toy that has become surprisingly popular among our youth, I can't help but smile. Perhaps this, in the end, is the greatest victory. Not the conquest of worlds or the defeat of enemies, but the forging of bonds between those who were once divided. The humans have a saying, "United we stand, divided we fall." As our two species stand on the brink of a new era, facing threats we can scarcely comprehend, I find myself embracing this simple yet powerful idea. Hey there again. I'm glad you've come so far. Hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to hit the like button and the subscribe button. This is really important to the channel. Really important. And I have one more thing for you. I've chosen another video for you to watch. Just click the card here, or here if you want the whole playlist. See you there.